The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What is up, Nickel City Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Wednesday Night Bills Tailgate. I'm excited to be bringing you this show. You might be wondering, hey, Mike, where's your co-host, Jake? Well, Jake has been a super busy man lately. He's got a new house. He's got a lot of things going on. But he'll be back Sunday night as we get into the pregame show. That's when we'll be breaking down this Bills Jets game. We'll get into all the details, what the Bills have to do to win this game, what the Jets have to do, and we'll get into it just like we did last year. But tonight, I wanted to get some opinions from rival representatives. And we have two of the best. I mean, I have Dolphin Keith and Anthony joining us. Dolphin Keith, obviously, represents the Dolphins, and Anthony represents the Jets. Now, if you don't know, these two guys are on our AFC East Summit show. The AFC Summit show had their debut on Nickel City Mafia last night. It was fantastic. Got a little heated when the Bills were when Anthony and the Bills rep Sean were talking about this matchup. But at the end of the day, they hugged, made up, and it was a fantastic show. I love the dedication, and I love the passion for their teams. We're not going to get into that right now, but we are going to talk about, get their opinions on the Bills. And these guys keep it real. I know they'll keep it real with me. But before I get into that, I want to kind of talk to each of you and kind of hear your story about how you became a Jet fan, how you became a Dolphin fan. Keith, I've heard your story before, but I love it, and I tell people that the story all the time because it's pretty funny. And then I also, when you start talking, tell them about your fantasy football strategy that you use. But anyhow, I make this assumption that everybody who's a fan of a team was born and raised in that area. And it's kind of a bad assumption, but the reason I have that is because it's well documented that in Buffalo, when you're born, they take you from the mom, they wrap you in a Bills blanket, they put you in that little carrier, and they wheel you right in front of a TV, and they put you in front of a Bills game. Whether it's a replay, there's Bills playing. Then over the next couple of years, people buy you Bills gear for your birthdays. You don't know, you're just a baby, but by the age of 3 or 4, you're like, hey, Dad, when's the game on? Who's coming over for the game? And it's just a natural thing. You never even realize that for the last 3 years, you've been taught to be a Buffalo Bills fan. But that's not the case for everybody. And I'm going to start with you, Dolphin Keith. Give us a story about how you became a Miami Dolphin fan.
Well, first and foremost, my dad's a Cowboys fan. He's a Cowboys fan who grew up in Philadelphia. So I don't even want to get into how that happened, but but I was an Air Force brat growing up. So my parents met in the Air Force. I was actually born in England, and they met in the Air Force. We moved from Air Force Base to Air Force Base when I was a kid, and when I was about 4 or 5, my dad noticed that I was watching football with him all the time, and so he basically said, you could be a fan of whatever team you want to be a fan of. It's world's your oyster, and you're not really used to that kind of autonomy when you're that age. You're used to all your decisions being made for you. So he put a catalog in front of me with like a bunch of like little football jerseys on them with helmets and the pants and all that. And he said, pick out a uniform. And when you pick out that uniform, that's your team. And that's your team for life. So I picked out a little number 13 Dan Marino jersey. And, ever since then, it's stuck. I've been a Dolphins fan ever since. And I bleed aqua and orange.
That's awesome. How old were you again when you made that decision?
Like 4 or 5. We were we were living in Sacramento at the time, near Sacramento at the time, at Beale Air Force Base.
So that's quite different. Like I said, growing up in Buffalo, you're not given that option. Your dad doesn't put a catalog in front of you or something and say, pick your team. It's you before you even look at that catalog, you're wearing Bills gear all the time. You've probably went to a game already by that age. So yeah. Pretty crazy. I love it. And then Anthony, let me ask you the same question. What's your story? What's your story about becoming a Jet fan?
Well, my father is an immigrant. He moved to the U.S. to New York, like every Italian, in the 1970s, and so he didn't really have any football teams to root for. I assume because I don't remember a time when I wasn't a Jets fan. So I assume that during that very small window when the Jets were relevant in the mid 80s, and they were a lot of fun back then. You had Lawrence Taylor going wild on the Giants, but you had the Sack Exchange, which was a phenomenally entertaining team. So I think that's about when my father probably graduated to being a Jets fan, and that's around the time that I came along.
And that was that Sack Exchange. Was that Gastineau years and Gastineau, Mark Gastineau, and who's the other guy?
It was Gastineau,
Klecko,
Marty
Klecko's
Lyons,
the guy, I think.
and then I can't remember the fourth one.
Man, those guys were amazing. I got to see them, and Gastineau, what a beast! What a beast that guy was.
I go back sometimes and watch, like, they have full YouTube like videos, like entire like Sunday night football games, Monday night football games on YouTube from the 80s, just to like see how different football was back then. And it was crazy how an unbelievably athletic, particularly Gastineau was. He's just a complete modern Myles Garrett style freak of nature coming off the edge. Like,
yeah, he's someone I believe. I mean, he could play in today's game. The way he was built, it was incredible. You haven't seen any pictures of him. He was quite the ladies' man. So
those were wild days, man. Those were wild days. Yeah, I'm sorry that I missed him sometimes. I don't remember a time when I wasn't. And then my mother, of course, like, I didn't even know that my mother was a big sports fan, but like, I don't know if you know the story of the New York Jets, but the team was originally the New York Titans, and then in 1963 they changed the name to the New York Jets because LaGuardia Airport was opening, and they were playing in Shea Stadium, which is in Flushing Meadows, which is like a 10-minute drive to LaGuardia. So they named them the Jets.
Yeah.
At the exact same time in 63 was the World's Fair in Queens. So my mother remembers that time. And when we were watching Hard Knocks, she was telling me about what it was growing up, seeing the New York Football Jets, because the Giants go back to like the 20s, seeing this brand new team in football playing in Flushing Meadow, Queens at the exact same time as the World's Fair that she used to get up and go to with her brothers. And it was just like, that's just the culture that I grew up in. And so I became a Jets fan because I didn't know any different. So probably similar to you being a Buffalo fan.
Similar to me. The only difference is, like I was saying, I was taken from my mom, wrapped in a Bills blanket, put in a little, carrier, and stuck in front of a TV. Mm-hmm. So it's good stuff. I love to hear that. Which team name do you like better, the Titans or the Jets?
Jets, by a mile.
Jets. All right. Keith, would you have taken the Jets or the Titans? Titans is kind of cool.
Titans is kind of cool, but it's taken now. So
yeah, I know.
When I was growing up, it wasn't, but it's taken now. So yeah, I guess the Jets work. Not that I'll ever cheer for them, but
I want to say hi to Jessica. Thanks for coming in, Jessica Tennyson, saying hi. Good to see you out there. So, Keith, I also want you to share your passion for your team and your fantasy football strategy. You kind of put that out there on the AFC Summit last night. And I tell this story to everyone because I think it's an incredible story, how you donate your money year after year. But tell the story. Tell the folks what your fantasy football strategy is.
Well, Mike, I wouldn't say I'm donating money, first and foremost. I finished as number one seed 3 years in a row. I didn't take home the championship. And, maybe some would argue if I had Josh Allen on my team, I would have. But I simply don't care. I will not have a Jet, Bill, or Patriot on my fantasy football team because it feels like I'm cheating on the Dolphins to cheer for a Jet, Bill, or Dolphin. To have mixed feelings about one of those players doing something good. Josh Allen throws a touchdown pass. I don't want to have anything but disgust in my heart when that happens. So yeah, So I don't draft any Bills, Jets, or Patriots.
Yeah, but your best
And
story is that Gronkowski one. Share that one
yes,
because that is so funny.
it was Gronk's second or third year in the league, and he scored a touchdown. And I was sitting there with my buddy, and he scored a touchdown, and I took the lead in the fantasy football game I was playing, and I cheered. I stood up and I cheered, and then I sat down. And I thought, I just cheered for a friggin' Patriot. I just cheered for Tom Brady to throw a touchdown pass to Rob Gronkowski. This isn't right. So that night, I put Gronkowski on waivers, and I haven't had a Bill, Jet, or Patriot on my team ever since. Anthony's looking at me like, "Oh, I feel so bad for him." I hear you, man. I do. I hear you. But
You know what
yeah,
kind of trade you could have gotten for Gronkowski? You just
I'm
said
sure I could have
immediately,
gotten.
put him on the waivers, get him off my team. Didn't even try to work a trade, which would have been anyone would have given up, pretty much anyone on their team for Gronkowski.
Yep. Nope. Get him off. Get him off the team.
You know, I can't say I follow the same strategy. I am trying to take the title. I feel I hear what you're saying, and I feel it because when we're playing that team, I'm like, I kind of like what Sean said yesterday. I'm like, all right, Gronk, go ahead, score your 3-4 touchdowns. We're still going to beat you. As long as we do that, I don't feel so bad. But when we lose and they do well, then it sort of sits with you. So I hear you.
Yeah.
You just took that right out of the mix. So I appreciate that dedication for sure. Fantastic. All right, guys. So let's get into the meat of why I brought you guys on tonight. I want to kind of hear, I saw on the AFC Summit, by the way, I'll say that again, go check out that show. These guys do a great job. We have Anthony, Keith, we have Chris, we have 3 reps from the Bills. They rotate in. We got Sean, got Jake, and we got Brett. I take the night off from that show because got plenty of young guns there. I want them to do their thing. Anthony, there's another person, Jackson. He also will rotate in sometimes. And Dolphin Keith is the only guy. He's the only Dolphin rep, but he's the only guy we need. He's so darn good. And then Chris as well. Chris did a great job hosting last night. So I want to kind of I'll start with, because the Jets and the Bills are playing this week, I'm always going to go to you second, Anthony. So I'm going to start with Dolphin Keith. And I want to get your perspective. You've been chasing the Bills for the last 3 years. Until last year, you really were getting whooped pretty bad by Josh Allen. Last year, man, 3 games, 1-score games. You took the first one, Bills win the second one, another close one, and then in the playoff game, you almost pulled out a huge upset with a third-string quarterback, right, in that game. You guys had the ball at the end of the game with a chance to go down and win that game. And fortunately for us, our Bills defense came up with a big play, and I think that was Kyrie Elam making that 4th down stop. But what's your thoughts this year about the Buffalo Bills?
They're the Kings. They're the Kings until they prove otherwise. They are the Kings of the division. That's my thoughts on them. They are the Dragons, and it's up to the Dolphins, the Jets, and to a lesser extent the Patriots, to slay them. Josh Allen is incredible. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody throw the ball like Josh Allen. I've never seen a football explode out of a quarterback's hands the way I've seen it with Josh Allen. And he can do some amazing things on the football field with his legs, with his arm, with everything. And as long as Josh Allen is behind center for the Bills, they're going to be huge threats in the AFC East. I didn't necessarily think that when he came out of college. I thought maybe accuracy was going to be an issue with him. But, he's put all that to rest with, a stellar work ethic and great leadership. And so what I think about the Bills is they are going to be forces to be reckoned with for the next decade plus. And I don't relish that because, I still remember when I first became a Dolphins fan. It was in the 90s when the Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith Bills were ruling the AFC East. And, the Dolphins were good, but they weren't quite good enough. And I'm kind of getting a little PTSD over here because I'm thinking that might be the same case. And I'm hoping it won't be, but, time will tell.
Yeah, those were great days back in the Kelly and Marino battles. I was fortunate enough to be um, a young adult at that time and got to see all that good stuff. And, they said that about Kelly coming out of college. And if you look at his stats in college, wasn't the most accurate passer coming out of there. And look what he did. So you're absolutely right about Josh Allen. I mean, that was the knock on him. There was a lot of people shocked that he was taken by the Bills, but you see what's happened. It was a fantastic pick by Bean.
Yeah, and a credit to Josh Allen for becoming.
Yeah,
a credit to Josh Allen for becoming the quarterback that he's become. He's really made great strides since college. Credit to him, and he's spectacular. All the superlatives that are levied upon him are completely warranted.
Yeah, I love how, Jessica, you just pulled us out of the air. I love it. Yes, you're absolutely right. Josh Allen, I'm saying Jim Kelly played for the USFL for 2 years before he joined the Bills. And it's funny that, he loves Buffalo now. He still lives in Buffalo. But at the time, he made it clear he did not want to play for Buffalo. We had Andre Reed on our show one night, and he put that out there. He says, Jim did not want to play for Buffalo. He played in a college where it's warm and did not want to go to Buffalo. But he did. Yeah. He came in, and, he came in when Reed was in his second year, and they just formed a great relationship, great chemistry, and the rest is history from there. Thanks.
That was such a great interview you guys did with Andre Reed too, Mike. Such a great interview.
Well, it was good and it was bad because I was like a little kid. I was forgetting things. I was like so awestruck because Jim Kelly and Andre Reed, they're 1 and 2 in my book. They're 1 and 2. And the rest of that team, the rest of those 90 players as well, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Darryl Talley, I can go on and on. Those guys will always be at the top of my list. Josh Allen now, it's a new era. And of course, I love him as well. But yeah, it's good times back then. And good battles. I got to see the Marino and Kelly battles, and they were so good. And yes, Kelly had the better of it, and especially in the playoffs. And I know it broke your heart. And that's one of the reasons you said you can't stand the Bills. But you're being nice about the Bills, which I appreciate. Well, but I know they broke your heart.
They did. You're such a nice guy, though, Mike. It's hard not to be nice to the Bills right now. No, now when I was a kid, like I said, the Dolphins were a good team, but the Bills were just a little bit better. They beat the Dolphins in that AFC Championship game, and I remember bawling my eyes out when it happened as a little kid. And that was like my first of many football heartbreaks. And it was the Jim Kelly Bills that did it to me. So ever since then, even when the Bills were in those dark ages, the tough times, I still dislike the Bills more than any other team in the NFL, Jets and Patriots included. Even when the Patriots were killing everybody, I still hate the Bills more.
Gotcha. GT Ecard, I hope I'm saying that, Hustle on Purpose, where Ian and Jake. So Ian's not a regular on the show. He comes on, I think he's only been on twice now, and Jake had some things going on. He'll be back Sunday night to join me for the pregame show, Bills-Jets pregame show Sunday night. So hopefully you stick around, GT. You're just not here for those two. We got some great guys here on the show with me tonight. But, yeah, that's what's going on. All right. Well, good stuff there. So let me ask you, worst, best memory, Bills versus Dolphins? I guess you just said your worst one.
Yeah, my worst one was that AFC Championship game. My best memory, as far as Bills-Dolphins games go, was that Week 3 game last year because Josh Allen had just owned the Dolphins to that point, and it seemed almost impossible that we were ever going to beat him at certain because it wasn't even like the games were close. As soon as the ball was snapped, the game was over. So last year, it felt like we just kind of got over the hump a little bit, and we were finally able to kind of beat Josh Allen somewhat on our own terms with, not the heat and everything. That played a factor. It absolutely did. But it was just so nice to finally beat Josh Allen and the Bills. And even, the other two games we played against them last year, we played them tough, which is something that in years past wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have done. So it gives me hope for the future. And that win last year in Miami especially gives me hope. So that's probably my favorite memory.
Gotcha. And that was a fantastic game. So let me ask you, Keith, did the Bills get better? Did they get better this year in your opinion as a rival? And have the Dolphins, I mean, obviously the Dolphins got better as well. There's some injury news I want to know from you because I still haven't got a straight answer. How's Jalen Phillips doing?
Jalen Phillips is doing all right. Are we talking about Jalen Phillips or Jalen Waddle?
Jalen Phillips, because he got hurt. I think didn't he get dinged up?
He got dinged up, but he's
was
okay.
okay?
He was a limited participant in practice today. As was Jalen Waddle. The injury I'm concerned about is Teron Armstead, who did not practice.
Yeah, gotcha. For some reason, I don't know why I thought I heard Phillips was going to miss some time, but maybe that was just something in passing. So
no, he's going to be all right.
Because that young man's a stud for you guys, and so it's going to be you're going to have a fantastic year with him.
I've been saying it all summer. He's going to pop off this year. He looks like he's got double-digit sacks written all over him. I'm really excited to see what Phillips does with the Dolphins this season.
All right. Well, I'll come back to you in a little, Keith. I have some more questions for you, but let me go over to Anthony. So, Anthony, as a Jet fan, as a Jet rep who, again, same story as Keith, been chasing the Bills for the last 3 years. And last year was the big turnaround for you. That defense, fantastic, right? And that defense was able to keep you in a lot of games. And then something happened towards the end of the year. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. But talk to me about your perspective on the Bills. Are they still the Kings? Are they still the team to beat? Have they gotten better? Or do you just feel like, this is the time they're primed to be overtaken this year? And explain why you might think that.
Okay. Well, to talk about the Bills right now, my philosophy in football generally is that we have a tendency to be sort of backward looking as fans, like who did it last year, who did it the year before that, who's proven it. And that in the NFL, every year we see that there's just constant turn. The NFL is constant evolution. A player at 32 isn't the same player as the player that was there at 31. Isn't the same player at 30. They usually they fall off sometimes really quickly. And the league switches fast. So to answer your question, the first question, where do I see the Bills? I see the Bills as a tremendously talented team, 1 year removed from their peak. I think last year, especially the second half of last year, was the best Bills team. And I think that they are rolling it back with the same team again that is maybe not as good, not because they've got worse players, but because it's kind of an aging team. So I think that one of my biggest concerns as an opponent for the Bills is still obviously Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a Hall of Fame player that we are watching in his prime right now. Like, we will be talking about those games like we talk about Jim Kelly, like we talk about Marino in the 80s and the 90s, like we talk about those peak teams with Montana and Rice. So it's like, when I talk about the Bills, I have to talk about them as an entire team rather than talk about them as I'm watching one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen pilot a team that is in a transition period, because you do have Greg Rousseau, but he's not going to be at that Von Miller level, and you're missing him for the first part of the season. So I see the Bills. I see them, and I respect what they've done over the last 3 years or so, but I'm concerned that this isn't the best Bills team. And while the window, and they're still extraordinarily dangerous, the window is not closed. It's not as open as it was last year, and it might not be as open as it was the year before that. I see this division, especially at the top, as being between the Jets and the Bills, and I think it's at a razor's edge, if that explains it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's fair. I mean, I guess I can see your aging comment there. I mean, when you talk about our safeties, right? Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, both coming off of injury years where they didn't play a full season. But we did bring in some younger guys. We got Damar Hamlin coming back. But you're right, they're young. I saw your points on Taylor Rapp last night. Not going to get into that discussion. I think it was a good fit for the Bills. But
I did some research on Rapp, and I take some of that back.
Okay. All right. So all good there. So the Bills, I feel like they saw that. They know that they had some, age question marks there. And if they're healthy, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are, again, in my opinion, the best duo in the league, even at their current age, just because of their knowledge of the game and the fact that what they can do for the cornerbacks and other folks in front of them. They can direct them. They can help the young guys. It looks like, not sure if Christian Benford's getting the start. I should have looked at that before that.
I looked at that right before, and our lads has them has him as the starter on one side.
So that makes sense. And with that youngster, having those guys behind him helping him out is just incredible. Trey White is Trey White. He doesn't need any assistance. He's 1 year removed. So again, still some question marks. We all believe that Trey's going to get back to where he was, but you never know. You never know with an ACL tear. And as far as the front line of that defense, we have an aging Von Miller. But, Von Miller won't be back for the first 4 weeks. We know that. And honestly, with me, as long as the Bills are doing okay, take your time. I'd rather him be there for that push at the end. The line, they got a little older, but, you're talking about Rousseau in his third year and Epinesa in his fourth year and some of these other guys. You're right. There's a good blend there. I don't think they're anywhere. I don't think I would consider them, over the hill or anything close to that.
Of course not. But that team, that team last year with Von in the lineup was top 3 or top 2, I forget, in pressure rate. And the moment that Von was out, that team went to the mids. I think they were like 15th or 17th or something in pressure rate, which tells me that he's such a force for you that missing him for that period of time might be an issue. And then we are talking about a 35-year-old coming back from an ACL.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You raised good points there. There was no doubt when he went out, we expected guys to step up, and it just didn't happen. I'm optimistic, that McDermott's going to bring a different type of defense. He didn't really show it in preseason. I didn't expect him to, but we do know he's a little more aggressive in his past days as being a defensive coordinator. So we'll see what he does there. My big concern is the middle linebacker, right? You lose Tremaine Edmonds, and it's a big question mark there. I believe Dotson's going to be the starter day one, and what we saw in preseason wasn't that good. So there's a big question mark there. Offensively, I think we did get better. Again, that's just a debate, my opinion. I mean, when you draft a tight end, I know I heard your story yesterday that tight ends typically don't do well, but there have been some tight ends in the past that have first rounders. Now, there's not a ton of them. And I went through a list, and I wish I had that list right now. But Kelsey in his second year. But there's people in the first year that actually had close to 100 targets. And let me see what Jessica is saying right here. And then everyone else on the defensive line at that point was basically playing on one leg or one arm. Very true. I mean, everyone was just injured. And then all that happened with Damar Hamlin.
And Kyle Pitts, as far as tight ends go.
Kyle Pitts is one of them, but there were others as well. I had a list of 10 that were taken, I don't know, maybe in the last 10, 15 years. And it's rare. You're right, Anthony. It's rare when they do, but it has happened. But I don't expect do I expect Dalton Kincaid to get 100 targets? No, we got Dawson Knox, who's a pretty darn good tight end as well. There's just so many mouths to feed. And I heard you, Trent Sherfield, saying, you weren't big on him, and Keith agreed with you. I'm not going to argue with you there, but Kincaid, Knox, Diggs, and Davis is pretty darn good. And I know Gabe Davis, a little over 50% completion rate last year. He was also a little dinged up, but he's got, I think you'll see a rebound year. And Kincaid, we got Khalil Shakir. We got a lot of depth pieces. So, and that offensive line is definitely better from last year. And so you're right. I mean, your points are valid, but there are some things. I don't know if you've checked out the Bills in full, all that they've done in the offseason. The offensive line is definitely upgraded. I would like to hear, because that's one of your, if I was to compare player by player, Bills, Jets, and we went by every position, they're definitely, by the time we were done, it'd be kind of a wash. I feel like it's pretty damn close. I will give you that. And your offensive line, though, let's talk about that. I know you were talking highly on them last night, and I'm not saying anything negative, but when I look at them, they look like a lot of the same players from last year. And tell me what they did this year in the offseason to help that offensive line, and why you think they're going to be much better this year.
I mean, they look a lot like the offensive line that started last year. They're not the offensive line that finished last year when we were on offensive tackles 5 and 6, because 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all injured. When Elijah Vera Tucker got injured, and we had guys like Dan Feeney and yeah, I know.
Dolphins just cut him.
They traded him for almost nothing.
Yeah, traded him, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Guys like Dan Feeney, guys like Connor McDermott, guys like the offensive line that we started with last year is so far removed from the offensive line that we finished the year with that I don't. To say that we upgraded is simply to say that, like, they're healthy. If we want to go left tackle to right tackle, Dwayne Brown, yeah, he's 40 years old. But, like, even last year, he was still one of the better pass blocking tackles in the NFL. Not amazing for run blocking, but whatever. Like, he's 40. Then we on left guard we had a down year from Laken Tomlinson. Laken Tomlinson was a Pro Bowler in 2021, as was Dwayne Brown. Like, they're not as young as they used to be, but like they're also not as bad. Connor McDermott Connor McGovern. Yes, that's the one we have. Connor McGovern.
That's center. Yep.
So we have Connor McDermott's, 2 Connor McGoverns in the same Connors in this division. Anyway, he is a bang average center, and I don't think you need much more than a bang average center, to say nothing of the fact that we used a 2nd round pick on Joe Tittman. Joe Tittman was the first center taken in this draft, and I think he was an absolute stud out of Wisconsin. 6'6", 305 pounds. He could play guard. He was originally drafted as a tackle, or originally recruited as a tackle. He's got short arms, but whatever.
I love Tittman. We were high on him as well when we were doing our mock drafts.
Stud, man! Did you see how many times they pulled him at Wisconsin? Like he was a lead blocker on polls. It's amazing. Yeah. Right guard AVT. Again, like if he's healthy, there's a Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber guard. And then I know we haven't seen much from Mackay, but like he had a botched surgery after Greg Van Roten, another guy you should be familiar with, after Greg Van Roten rolled up on him, breaking his kneecap. He's been out for 2 years. He gained a little bit of weight. He struggled to come back. I think the front office really they did him dirty. They did things like they leaked out in the media that he'll be back in 4 weeks. It was at least a full year surgery. I think that they messed with his head. In the past year or so, he seems to have gotten it together. And if you saw him in the preseason, the dude was freaking dominant again. I mean, they had him on tackle on tackle poles. They had him on pin-in poles. They had him out in space. They had him just mauling people. I think it was something like 40 snaps. He gave up 1 pressure. He looked like the Pro Bowler that he looked like as a rookie. And to be honest with you, if you had Mekhi Becton on the Bills, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. You'd throw out Spencer Brown in a minute. You'd pay for his bus fare out of town if you had Mekhi Becton, injured or otherwise. So
I don't know.
think
I don't know if I agree necessarily with that, because when you've been injured for a few years and those injuries, I don't know what type of player I'm going to get right now. So I hear you, but you do have a lot of question marks, right? You're talking about a 40-year-old Brown. You kind of threw that aside, like he's 40 years, but it is what it is, right?
Because it was just a year ago that he was one of the higher graded left tackles.
I got you.
It's not like a Jason Peters, for example, who played, I think, not even 200 snaps for the Cowboys last year and looked completely washed.
Yeah, but to your point, to start this show, you had talked about getting older, right? You talked about you're not the same team from last year. You're getting older.
For sure. I'm not saying it's not a concern at all, but I am saying that one of the things that I like to discuss in terms of like what kind of issues you have, would you rather, if you have an Aaron Rodgers and you know that he gets rid of the ball in 2.3 seconds, he's always one of the fastest in the league to get rid of the ball, would you rather have possibly a shaky set of tackles, or would you rather have shaky interior pressure? Like, you'd much rather have, okay, you get rid of the ball, let the pressure come from the outside if it's going to come at all.
Yeah, so you raised a good point. Look, I mean, it's Josh Allen too. Josh Allen, the offensive line was pretty tough last year. Let's put it that way. And Josh Allen, when you look at sack numbers, you're like, that offensive line did pretty well. But if Josh Allen wasn't Josh Allen, did magical things, there would have been at least another 5 to 10 sacks on that number. Same thing with Rodgers. You're absolutely right. With Rodgers, he understands. I mean, he's been around so long. He's going to get rid of that ball quick. It's just like Burrow. Look, Burrow's offensive line wasn't that good either, but Burrow gets rid of the ball so darn quick. Although the Chiefs somehow were able to manhandle them in the championship game. But when you get rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds, you're right. It's hard to get any pressure at all. And we saw that with the Bills against the Bengals. So I hear you. So to me, there are some question marks, and you're right. If they stay healthy, that's always a big thing, and we say that all the time with a lot of players. Like I said, with the safeties of the Bills, if they stay healthy, they're the best duo in the league. But that's a big if. So it's going to be interesting to see, because to me, looking at your team, if I had to pick a place where they're a little bit suspect, that would be the place. But you're right; they could make up for that, because they have Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers could be dumping that ball off to Breece Hall, dumping that ball off to Dalvin Cook, letting them get in space and do their thing. So it'll be interesting. Again, I didn't want to get into it too much, but I think going player by player, and I have Keith here because he's, he'll keep us even here, right? He's that middle person who really doesn't care about either of our teams.
In fact, despises both.
Despises both of them.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct, I do.
So, Keith, what's your thought on the... actually, let me go to the channel here. I don't want to forget. We got Sophia from Hawaii. Always good to see Sophia. Aloha, Bills fam. Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming out here. Jessica, yep. I figured Bernard was starting based on what I saw last week. So, and I'm not disappointed with that whatsoever. I think the fact that we have 3 guys that could play corner for us and can be starters is fantastic. So I love it. Benford started last year because Dane Jackson was cornerback 1. Benford was number 2. And I'm excited to see what this young guy brings. And then we have Torrance, another young guy. What's your thought? Let me ask you, Anthony, what was your thought on Osiris Torrance? Where did you have him in the draft going? And what was your thoughts on him?
I liked Osiris Torrance's tape, but I felt like he needed to lose 25 pounds. He was a mauler, but in the NFL these days, it's ruled not by sheer, like when back in the day, I'm sure you remember the old days when we would have who is the nose tackle that you guys had? It was like 300 and like
Ted Washington.
Pounds. Yes,
Teddy,
big boy. Like the NFL isn't going that way anymore. The NFL is going in the way of 290-pound 3 techs, 310-pound nose tackles. The NFL is in a place where it's about speed. And I felt like Osiris Torrance would benefit a lot from losing weight. I thought his tape was really nice. I thought he showed a lot of power for Florida, but I also didn't feel like he was a first round lock. Because I don't know if you remember going into the draft, it was like Osiris Torrance was by everybody put in like the top 26 picks, 28 picks or so.
We had mocked him to us. We wanted him. I mean,
in the first?
We want him in the first. Absolutely.
Yeah. Where he went ultimately in the second, I thought was a pretty good place. He was the second guard off the board. I still think that he's going to benefit from an NFL strength and conditioning program. And I liked his technique. I liked his pad level. He was a great guard prospect.
Yeah. So what I've seen in preseason from him, because you get to watch, if you subscribe to the NFL Plus, you get to see the All 22 film.
Mm-hmm. I have
and he's been, and then there's a lot of Bills shows that do fantastic coverage. They break it down. I think Cover One's one of them. I mean, his film in the preseason, again, it's preseason, but he was going against number ones in all three of those games. They had their first teamers in there, and just what he did was fantastic. I mean, it looked like he was a seasoned vet already, and I get it. It's preseason. We'll see it happen. He is the starter, and I think he's going to elevate Spencer Brown, which is our bigger issue over there at right tackle. And don't get me wrong, I know Spencer Brown, I haven't given up on him yet. I know this is his third season, and I know he's going to go against a stout defense this Monday night. And they'll make adjustments. They'll get some help over there for him. I think Torrance, like I said, will be a significant difference maker from Bates from last year for Spencer Brown. And again, they'll have some other scheme to get him out. Maybe a tight end out there, chipping, or a running back out there. Let me see here. And then yes, I was hoping that Jessica or Sophia.
Oh, he did lose 30
yes,
pounds? Wow, that's awesome.
Thought I had heard that, so that's fantastic.
Nice.
Thank you for Sophia for bringing that in. And then Sophia also says, yeah, most of what the nation saw of the Bills last year was second and third string. And with gambling exploding, people lost a lot of money on the Bills and are sour. So, Keith, let me go to you. You've heard us talking back and forth. If you were to say what is the weakness of the Jets, where do you see the holes in these two teams? Like, if there is an issue, big question mark, where are they on both these teams?
Well, I see very few holes in the Jets' defense, first and foremost. I love their defense. I thought they had a championship-level defense last year. And, they didn't really lose anybody of note on that defense. So, I think their skill position players are still a little lacking outside of Garrett Wilson. I'm not a huge fan of Allen Lazard. Mecole Hardman never really put it together in Kansas City. Their tight ends, Conklin now is that their tight end? That he's okay. And then Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, they're both solid running backs, but I think where the Jets' weakness is going to be is potentially the offensive line. Anthony went through the Jets' offensive line, and there's a lot of what ifs there. There's if Dwayne Brown can play at a high level at 40 years old. If Laken Tomlinson can have a bounce-back season. If Mekhi Becton can finally stay healthy for basically the first time in his entire career, then the Jets' offensive line is going to be solid. A lot of what-ifs are, that's the prerequisite for the Jets having a solid offensive line. I think it's also worth noting that Aaron Rodgers is also almost 40 years old himself. And he has had injury problems in the past. It's not like he's been a beacon of health his entire career. So, same thing could be said about Tua behind a shaky Dolphins offensive line, but behind a shaky Jets offensive line, how well is Aaron Rodgers going to hold up? So I would say that the Jets' biggest weakness is probably their offensive line, and that's where they should be attacked.
And then on the Bills side?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Same offensive line. I think Spencer Brown hasn't played up to his capabilities. I I think you guys did well getting Torrance when you got him. Deion Dawkins, I think, is a solid player. Temple from Philly. I think same with the Bills. I think the same can be said for all three of our teams. That our offensive lines, our respective offensive lines, are probably our weakest points, and that's where we should be attacked. And in that vein, all of our defensive lines are pretty strong, which is where we're going to attack each other. So it's going to be interesting to see which of our offensive lines hold up over the course of the season, because it could get ugly.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm not going to battle you on that because I do believe the Bills' offense upgraded a bit with Connor McGovern coming over from Dallas and, of course, Torrance. But he's a rookie. So that's a big question, right? When he's put there, and can he elevate Spencer Brown? If you look at the offensive line, it's Spencer Brown for sure is the huge question mark. And of course, like I said, for this game, I don't care if Spencer Brown was a top-notch tackle. They're going to have to get some help over there on that right side. That Jet D line is amazing. I like a guy that you don't even start right now. He's Jermaine Johnson. You guys drafted him. You got a steal on him last year. And when he did play, he played, I forget what game it was, game 1 or game 2 against the Bills. And when Josh Allen was trying to scramble, he closed the gap so quickly and was able to take him down. I was like, my God, this dude's impressive. But he still hasn't, but they rotate. They rotate a lot, right?
They rotate a ton.
Yeah, same with the Bills.
Jermaine Johnson last year, I think, only got something like 13% of snaps.
Wow.
I think the most snaps that anybody got last year might have been like Quinnen, around 60%, which is still super low. So they're constantly churning them in and out. Jermaine looked insane in the preseason.
Yeah.
Just absolutely went wild. Will McDonald went wild. Bryce Huff, another guy that, like, he was a UDFA a couple of years back. He's going to be a free agent coming up. 4 sacks in the preseason and a fumble. 4 sacks.
Yeah, he was the guy who almost ended Josh's season last year. I mean, he's a playmaker. So your defense and your depth is top notch. Absolutely, 100%. And for me, if I'm being honest, if the Bills' weakness is that middle linebacker position, although we did just sign Christian Kirksey, who I think can come in, I think he will be that guy. But I think it's going to be Dotson, maybe Bernard. We'll get to see him finally, who we drafted last year. And then if things are still going bad, I don't think Kirksey suits up week 1. So I'd be surprised if he was, but we'll see. That would be the one area that I might look to attack for the Bills on defense. That is, but otherwise, solid all around. So good stuff there, Anthony. Thank you for that. I do want to ask you a question because I think the guys asked you. By the way, who's coughing? I feel so bad for this person.
My wife. She has bronchitis.
Oh, poor her.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry.
Tell me, I think the guys asked you on the AFC East Summit show last night, but snap counts between Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall. What's that going to look like?
I can't tell you about snap counts. Generally,
and I'm sorry, I mean like 60%. Give me a percentage of what you think Breece Hall will carry.
Yeah, I think game plan wise, he's going to be around 50% of the carries. I think Cook's going to be somewhere around 35, and I think they're going to split it up. Maybe the last 15 going to Michael Carter, and if they suit him up, Izzy.
Okay. And then Anthony, I asked Keith this question already. What's your favorite or worst memory, or maybe you have one of each?
Oh, I have one. I have one of each.
Of the Jets versus the Bills.
Yeah, my favorite one, 2012, right before the Rex Ryan era went completely off the rails. We had a I don't remember, I think it was a home opener against the Bills. I was at a pub with a friend of mine, and it was just a shellacking, like 48-20 or something like that. Like, you guys had Fitzpatrick going, and he just got annihilated. Yeah, that was a good time. Worst memory, 2015. I think I was living in Tokyo at the time. And the Jets were having their Fitzmagic season. The Jets were having their Fitzmagic season with Brendan Marshall and Eric Decker. they were having a time, and we were 10-5, and we lost to the Bills the last game of the season. 10-6, didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, Brandon Marshall, man, he was amazing. Love that guy.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, we've been into it for 51. Oh my god, almost an hour. Are you kidding me? It doesn't feel like that, does it?
Time
On
flies when
flies.
we're having fun.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to talk about is your thoughts on why the Jets and the Giants continue to be in New Jersey, and how do you feel about the Bills getting a new stadium? They are the only New York team, the true New York team, even though the other two teams have the name behind them. But what is your thoughts there, Anthony? Because it does look. I know
I'll
the
tell
Jets.
you exactly why.
Yeah, tell me why.
I can tell you exactly why. All right. So, do you remember when the draft was in Madison Square Garden?
No.
You don't remember when the draft used to be in Madison Square Garden? The draft picks used to come out. There were the lights underneath them. Anyway, the draft was forever in Madison Square Garden. That's where it always was every single year, all through the 80s and into the 90s, okay? So, in the early 2000s, the Jets were up and bidding for the West Side Rails property in Manhattan. Like, there's a huge stretch of Manhattan on the middle west side that was really literally just rail yards. Like, it's still rail yards. They've been talking about building on it forever. But going back almost 20 years, the Jets were trying to get that stadium going. Michael Bloomberg was the mayor of New York City, and the owner of the Knicks, James Dolan, powered with Michael Bloomberg, and I forget who was the governor of New York at the time, to block the Jets' bid to get the West Side Rails property to build a stadium in Manhattan. Goodell takes the draft in spite, because James Dolan owns MSG, owns the Knicks, owns the Rangers. In spite, takes the draft out of MSG, puts it 1 year in Rockefeller Center, and then the draft gets put up as a bid, as an auction, to go around from city to city to city every single year to take away money from the city of New York for blocking the bid of the New York Jets and the New York Giants to get a property in Manhattan. That's why we're not there.
That's kind of that is interesting. Yeah, because the Giants left first, and 8 years after they went over to Jersey, the Jets followed.
Yes.
And it's a similar situation in California out here with the Chargers and, of course, the Rams. And I want to know, in our situation out here, I say, I'm not a fan of those teams, but I've been to SoFi Stadium. But I can tell you that the Chargers are kind of the stepchild there. And they're the stepchild because they left San Diego. They broke the hearts of San Diego folks. And I have a lot of friends who are diehard Charger fans that did not follow the team when they left. They just could not believe a deal could not be struck to get a stadium. And I'm thinking, Buffalo did it. I mean, I don't know how a small town can get a stadium, and San Diego, rich, plenty of money, can't get it done. And they had spots, they had land, they could have made it happen. But they go and they're like, all right, we'll go rent space in SoFi. And obviously the Rams win the Super Bowl. I mean, winning really helps. Who's going to be that stepchild? But the Chargers are the stepchild right now. They lost a lot of fans. They're a pretty good team. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. They've always had less than what they've never hit their expectations in the past few years, and we'll see if what happens again. But right now, the Rams are the king of that stadium. That is Rams' home, and the Chargers are just renting space there. But I will tell you, so over here, I would imagine it's the same thing. I would think the Giants, because they've been there the longest. They've been there, playing there the longest. And have you been to MetLife?
I have not been to MetLife, no.
Interesting. I was curious about it. I thought it was older when I did my research. It's only been open for like 13 years. I think it opened in 2010, so it's relatively new. I was curious what it was like playing there, but I'm just curious if there's a stepchild there. Are the Jets the stepchild because this is Giants world? Or
the Jets have always been the stepchild in New York. One, because the Giants are much older. The Giants go back to the 20s, and they've had a single owner. Like, they've had the Maras since, as far as I know, they started. It's been just passed down from one Mara to the next. Then they have a secondary owner who's Tisch. He put his name on the film school in New York City. Steve Tisch. So the Jets have always been the stepchild, partly because, I mean, obviously the Giants have 4 Super Bowls. Those 4 Super Bowls all came within the last 30 years, just about. 86 was the first one, so 40 years or so. So, like, the Jets have always kind of been the stepchild, but, like, it's interesting right now because both the Jets and the Giants have been terrible for a bit.
Yeah.
The Jets have been terrible really since 2015 when we were close to making the playoffs. And, you know, that was just a patch, really. We were bad before that, and we've been bad after that. But, like, the Jets look pretty strong right now. And you see a lot of Giants fans starting to buck. Like, they're starting to, you know, the Jets aren't so good. And, the Jets think they're going to win a Super Bowl. The same thing you guys are doing in Buffalo.
Miami too,
and Miami, and I'm sure New England. So like we're starting to collect, as Robert Saleh says, we're starting to collect haters, and that's a good thing.
Gotcha. What'd you think of Hard Knocks?
I thought it was well done. I thought the way it unfolded made the whole season make more sense because Hard Knocks was always about the players trying to make the roster. And this season, they did focus very heavily on Aaron Rodgers, obviously because he's an A-lister. But I think that they focused on Aaron Rodgers largely because they didn't want Joe Douglas. The story goes out, Joe Douglas was on the first season of Hard Knocks, which is the Ravens. I don't know if you remember it 20 years ago. I don't know why you would. I do. So Joe Douglas was the Turk, the guy whose job it was to tell a player when they're getting cut, to literally take their playbook and escort them to the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the walk of shame. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh did not want to show this. It was their express intention that they didn't want players who worked their entire lives to get this opportunity to exploit their grief in that moment for ratings. So that's why you get a lot of the Aaron Rodgers mania, because they made the show very much as a different series this season. And it was entertaining. The first episode with Liev Schreiber coming in on a helicopter was hilarious. It was fantastic. It was great TV. Aaron Rodgers is a nutcase.
Did you catch any of it, Keith?
I watched it. That first episode with Liev Schreiber coming in, that was, Aaron Rodgers, the voice of God's coming in, the voice of God. And Liev Schreiber, I didn't know he narrated Hard Knocks. I don't know how long he's been doing it for.
Dude, he's been doing HBO documentaries as long as I remember.
Looking at it now, he's got a great voice for it. I just didn't know he was the narrator of Hard Knocks for whatever reason. So when he got off the plane, it's like, is that Liev Schreiber? And so it was a good season. I will say this, and I guess it's the I don't know. I feel bad. I guess knowing what I know now, what Anthony just said, I feel bad for saying this, but watching the players' journeys and seeing the cuts was, I guess, part of why I watched Hard Knocks in the past. That's part of why. I mean, I feel bad saying that now, but that's part of why a lot of people watch Hard Knocks in the past. I guess I just said the quiet part out loud, right? But and not seeing it this year was, and I knew going in that wasn't going to be the case. I somewhere I heard it that they weren't going to be showing that, and it was still a good season, but not seeing it this year. little let down by it, but that it is what it is. I'll get over that.
I did not watch it, but I was curious about your guys' opinions on it. So thank you for that. So, guys, let's get out of here with a score prediction for the game this weekend. Sunday, Monday Night Football, Bills, Jets. I'll start with Keith. Give me your score prediction for that game.
I'm going to go with 24-20 Bills.
So I love that. Bills are 2.5 underdogs, and honestly, it's kind of a wash game. I mean, the reason they're 2.5 underdogs is because you have the home field advantage there in New Jersey. I will say this: in years past, the Mafia, and let me just say this: I've been to games to see the Bills play the Chargers in where the Chargers used to play. I've seen the Bills come to SoFi to play the Rams. Half the stadium was Buffalo fans. Half the stadium. I know they're going to travel well. I don't know when tickets went on sale, and I don't know if they got them, but they travel well. In years past, people that have been to MetLife had said it felt like a home game because there were more Bills fans there. So it's going to be interesting, Anthony, to see how that plays out. Of course, the hype is there. I'm sure people were buying tickets as soon as they could, but when they go on sale, man, people purchase these, and then it's the highest bidder. Because they resell them for such a markup, it's insane. I wish the NFL would do something about it. But give me, first of all, what's your thoughts on that? Bills Mafia going to travel there? They're gonna represent well, and then give me your prediction.
Okay, I have no idea how the Bills Mafia is gonna travel. I can tell you that in the past, it has been my experience when the Jets were terrible. That yes. Steelers fans showed up. Bills fans showed up. Jets fans left at the end of the first quarter or second sometimes. It was miserable. Are we going to have that juice on 9/11? I think we will. I think that the season ticket holders will show up. I don't know how much reselling there's going to be. Aaron Rodgers' first game for the New York Jets on Monday Night Football, on 9/11, that's going to be a different kind of feeling.
Yeah, it is. I get chills thinking about it. It's just going to be an incredible game.
It's going to be a great time.
It is. It really is.
Really looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah. The NFL has been waiting for the day that the Jets and the Giants were good again so they can put them on Monday night game for that event. For that tragedy that happened, and it's just going to be electric for everybody. It's going to be an incredible game. Again, I get chills when I think about that game. But your score prediction, Anthony?
Back to that. I'm going to give the same score prediction I gave yesterday: 24-13 Jets.
I was hoping you were drinking last night, and maybe you had a night to sleep it off, and you came in with a different.
No, this is just coffee.
So what is it again? 24-13.
13.
All right. As I said earlier, I will not give a prediction until Sunday night when we get into it with Jake and I. But I love it. I love your passion for the team, and I'm obviously leaning towards Keith's prediction. And I hope the Bills. Now let me just say this: if the Jets were to lose, it's New York media. This is going to be just a nightmare. If the Jets lose, I mean, the overreaction, you always say this, the overreaction. On the Bills side, there'll be an overreaction, of course. Not as big, I don't think. Not as big. Because you've traveled on the road. You're going against a team that has this new quarterback. The hype is there. Everything. The city is energized. And I'm saying New Jersey, the city. Where in New Jersey they play. But anyhow, the fans are energized. If the Bills were to lose, yeah, we'll have an overreaction, but I won't be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised. A couple years ago, we played a home game against the Steelers, who I thought we were just going to crush them. I said, there's no way the Steelers come into Buffalo and beat us. They did. So, and this is on the road. So I wouldn't be surprised, but man, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle for sure. So good stuff, guys. I appreciate your time on here. Again, if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, drop a nickel on that subscribe button. And something new I'm going to say, share this channel, get it out. We're 9 subscriptions away from getting to 1,500 subs. That's a huge milestone for us. We are trying to target that before the kickoff on Monday night. Still got a shot, but we need your help, and we greatly appreciate it. These two guys, you can see them on the AFC East Summit every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. They do a great job. It's a fantastic show. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes the boxing gloves are on. We saw that last night. If you haven't checked out that episode, go check it out. I mean, Keith was with his phone. He didn't know if he should dial 911. 911, what's your emergency? I got a Bills rep and I got a Jets rep, and I think something's going to go down. Keith had that phone. He's texting me, Mike, what do I do? Do I call 911 or what? What's going on here? So it was a good show, guys. It really was. And a little heated, but again, at the end of the day, we hug, we make up, and we put on a good show, and you guys know your stuff. That's what's so good about it. So check out that show for sure. Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. Going to be fantastic. Jake and I will be on Sunday night, 9 p.m. to go through our the pregame show. And other exciting news, we got a Buffalo Sabre show coming to Nickel City Mafia. You know, when I built this channel 2.5 years ago, I always said, and I even say it in the description, if you go look at our channel, we're all about Buffalo and then some. The then some are the extra things we do. We do fantasy football. We do golf. We do AFC East Summit, which is about Buffalo, part of it, a fourth of it. But we do Buffalo Bills. We do food. We talk about the great food in Buffalo. And this year, probably within the next 30 days, we're adding the Buffalo Sabres. I think the Sabres are close to turning things around. So watch for that. Coming soon, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Everyone else, again, have a great night. We'll see you soon. Tomorrow night, guys, it is here. Let me ask you. Yep. Chiefs, Lions. Guys, I mean, no Chris Jones, no Kelsey. And where's it at? Is it in KC?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Okay. You smell an upset, maybe?
I don't fully believe in the Lions just yet. So I'm still gonna go with KC. Let me see. It's a home game for KC. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't fully believe the Lions just yet. I actually think the Packers are going to win that division this year. So, yeah.
All right. A lot of people believe that Mahomes, if he can bring 3 receivers off the street tomorrow, just 3 random receivers, and he can win games with those guys starting. Yeah. He can get the job done. We saw that what he did in the playoffs last year was fantastic on a bum leg. But Anthony, what are you thinking for tomorrow?
I'm actually thinking it's gonna be. I'm with Keith. I'm not all the way in on the Lions yet. I feel like they had a fantastic opportunity to build on what they did last year through the draft, and I don't think they did that. Okay. I to your point with Mahomes being able to throw to 3 guys on the streets, like I actually love. One day, if you bring me back on here, I'm going to talk to you about how I see the parallels between the Kansas City Chiefs and between the Bills and the differences in their strategies of building around their absolutely elite quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. We'll definitely bring you on, Anthony. You're family now. You're part of the channel.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Just don't bring the boxing gloves with me, man. I'm too old to be punched, man. I know I'm fast. I can dodge, but
no, we have a nice pace here. I like this like calm, sort of chill, just hey.
Yeah, this is meant to be a fun show. Yeah, Big Al out there. That's Jake's dad. Okay. And he's been a supporter of the channel since day one. And Big Al, go find Jake. Tell him to get to work here. He's got a job here on Nickel City Mafia. Anyhow, that's it, everyone. Have a great time. Football starts tomorrow. Let's go.
Can't wait.
Good night, everyone. Go Bills. Come on, give me that, Jake. Anthony, give me your best. JETS. Jets. Let me hear that thing.
My wife might be sleeping right now. I don't think I can tonight. But what I will do, jet up.
All right. Go Bills. Take care, guys.